All right, so I think we're on air. Hi everyone, welcome to MedTech Innovator Live. This is our webinar series where we bring in speakers and panelists to discuss topics that are relevant to our medical technology companies. So today's topic is actually a little more general, and we're going to be talking about perfecting your pitch video. I'm going to start with some introductions. So I'm going to kick it over to our very own Paul Grand first. Paul, do you want to talk about your background and what brings you to, or what we're going to be talking about today?
Sure, very happy to. Thank you, Kathryn. Hi, I'm Paul Graham. I'm the CEO of MedTech Innovator. And for those of you who haven't met me before, my career was previously as an entrepreneur, and then I became a venture capitalist for almost 12 years. And over the course of that time, got to work with some incredible companies from around the world, saw the need for a program to help accelerate some of these innovators wherever they might be. And that is what grew into MedTech Innovator. We do competitions around the world, and we have a cohort this year, very exciting, of 50 companies that are part of our showcase who are participating in this program and the webinar. We also have 20 companies that are part of our accelerator program. So I'm here to answer any questions. Excited to talk about pitch videos today.
Great. And then our next speaker is John Weiser. So John, if you want to give a brief introduction about yourself and your background.
Sure. My name is John Weiser. I run distribution for Sony Pictures. I've been there for about 30 years. And of the different things that I do in my job that could benefit you is I'm in charge of sales training. So I actually teach people on a regular and global basis how to tell their stories on all different types of product and all different types of pitches with all different types of asks. And one of the shows that we produce that I get to be involved with is Shark Tank. So if light bulbs are going off in your heads right now, there's a reason. It's because this is kind of similar in terms of what you all are putting together and the coaching we do on Shark Tank to get the entrepreneurs ready. So with that, over to you.
Great. Thank you, John. We're really excited to have you join us today. I'm going to start with kind of a general question towards Paul. I think the 1-minute videos has become kind of a hallmark for MedTech Innovator. And so why do you want to have this format? Why have our companies all submit a 1-minute video?
That's a great question and an important one, Kathryn. So yeah, I am incredibly passionate and a big believer in our 1-minute videos. I think 1 minute is actually plenty of time to tell a story and to give people that elevator pitch in a controlled and produced way. As an industry, I think all of us have shrinking attention spans. It's not just our kids, it's all of us. And I've seen people go in my industry, in the venture industry, from reading long business plans to saying, oh, let me just browse the presentation. And these days people are going, boy, I wish there was a video I could watch. So it's become something that I think is an incredibly successful tool our companies have used to tell their story. It's a great discipline to learn to tell your story in a concise way. And additionally, I can say now that this is our 5th year of this program. We've had videos every year of the program, and every single year as people leave the program, one of the first things they always tell me is that they really, really find the video to be probably one of the best assets they created during the program. They put them on their homepage on their website. They send them to people. They send them to investors. They just always tell me that it was just the greatest thing. And everyone says the same thing. They'll say, like, God, I was really scared to do it in the beginning, or I thought it was a lot of pressure, and it turned out to be unbelievable. So I love the videos.
I do too. So let's get into some more specifics. So in particular, I guess the reason why we're doing this webinar today is because our 50 showcase companies are all going to have to prepare a 1-minute video that's going to be played during the MedTech Innovator Showcase at the MedTech Conference this fall. And so, Paul, maybe you could talk about who the audience will be there and how they should format their video to appeal to those people.
Well, it's interesting. So You mentioned the AdMed conference or the MedTech conference in the fall. One of the things that's really important to realize is that these videos have many different audiences. It might be an investor who's watching your video. It might be a potential partner who's watching this video. And in the case of the MedTech conference in the fall, these videos are going to be watched by executives from across the industry before each company gives its presentation on the panel. So it's very important that we have a video that tells the story, that is somewhat timeless. Obviously, you want to talk about milestones and things you're achieving. We'll get into that in a minute. But the key thing is that the audience for the video you're going to have a mix of people, and you want to create something so that if someone sits down in front of the video and they don't know that much about your company or they don't know that much about your industry, they should be able to learn about it. You shouldn't make too many assumptions. But that said, the audience at the MedTech conference will be a highly educated audience that does know quite a bit about the MedTech industry.
Great. And so, John, I'm going to turn to you. You mentioned that you have a really great background and you had that experience as a pitch for Shark Tank. And so maybe you could speak to a little bit about what you find to be helpful in creating a story. What are some tips you have for companies, things to consider?
So some very basic things that if they're answered, everything is about storytelling. So you have to contextualize this as, am I telling a story people are going to remember? Generally speaking, people will not remember numbers. If you want to use one number in your 1-minute video, I would say, okay. But if you pitch numbers, people won't remember them. What they will remember is an emotional connection to you or your product. Most investors need to like the idea, but they bet on the jockey, not on the horse. So you have to be likable, which means smile, be confident, and be knowledgeable, and have a good energy and passion to you. People want to see passion because passion is contagious. And the simple elements that you're going to want to consider including in your recipe are your name, who you are, what the problem or opportunity is, who it affects, kind of the size of the market, why it's important, is it a growing problem with increased health costs, and what the solution is. And then why is it unique? What will you do with the money you get? Is it to invest in inventory or technology? Those are some of the kind of things that if you address, the person watching them won't ask very basic questions. And it could be the backbone or the structure to the actual story you tell.
Thank you, John. Those are some great tips, I think, for generally telling a story. I think, so Paul, I'm going to turn back to you and kind of talk more specifically. I think you have more background in who's going to be watching these videos. And so one of the questions that one of our companies has asked is, should they include the team on the video? So John actually had mentioned, that investors are betting on the jockey, not the horse. So I think this falls in line with that. Should they have their team members on the video?
Yeah, that's one of the questions I get asked the most often. And it's really this idea of who are we seeing in the video. John is 100% right in that as investors, as partners, whomever it is that's watching the video, I want to connect with the company. I want to know who you are as a company. And if I have, a professional voiceover, not that that's bad, but if I hear professional voiceover and I never see anybody from the company, it doesn't really give me a sense of who the company is. And even though it's 1 minute, I think it makes a huge difference to actually have the team in the video. And we'll watch some videos in a little bit during this conversation from past companies during this webinar. And so I'll show you some examples of ones that I like that did a good job at that. And I think the important thing to remember is that I know a lot of people get nervous about being on screen. And it's something I want to ask John about too, about, how people get over that, being nervous and, what they do to kind of prepare. So I'll ask John that in a second, or you can ask John. But the important thing is that we want to see the person and or the team who's involved in the company in some way in the video. It might just be for the intro. You might come on and say, hi, I'm Paul Grant. I'm the CEO of MedTech Innovator. And then it fades off to some video of of more interesting things happening, you know, about MedTech Innovator or competitions, whatever. And maybe you continue to hear my voice talking over it, or my transition to somebody else's voice. And maybe that's the only time you need to see me. Maybe I come back at the end. But just a little bit of a connection makes a huge difference in people's minds when they go, oh, that's that company that Paul Grand is part of. John, let me, I want to ask your thoughts on that too, about how, you know, how do you get people over? Because that's one of the things that people say most times, like, oh my God, I'm terrible on camera, or I'm nervous, I'm going to mess up my line. So what do you do with people to, you know, to help them with that?
There is a very easy fix to that, Paul, and that is everybody listening that's planning on doing a tape yourself in advance. Do it 20 times, practice. Nobody who's great at what they do didn't practice it a lot. And be objective, like film yourself on your iPhone or your Galaxy. I don't want to be anything but neutral there, but tape yourself and then objectively look at yourself. Are you sitting up tall? Are you smiling? Are you confident? Are you authentically yourself? You have to tape yourself and practice. It's a 1-minute video. You should be able to explain your idea so simply to family and friends that they understand it. That way you don't get too complicated, and then just practice it. Paul?
Thanks. You know, and Kathryn, actually, you know, maybe we could take a moment for a second, if it's okay with you. If it's all right with you, can we, you mind if I play a video from one of our companies, and then we can kind of use that as an example?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, great. All right, so I'm going to share a video from one of our past companies, and I think you'll see what I mean. So hold on for 1 second. I may have to share my entire screen. Let's see. Oh, there we go. All right, and the video I'm going to play is from, this is a video done by one of our founders at a company called Becker Smith. He self-produced this video, so he did this all by himself, but you'll get a chance to get a sense for the entrepreneur.
Do you know why these nurses are so happy? Because their ICU is using the FlowSafe technology. What's FlowSafe? The first and only automated spinal fluid drain. You know why these surgeons are happy? Because after surgery, their patient will be connected to the FlowSafe and not the usual unsafe devices. To this day, nurses are forced to navigate a manually operated stopcock to guesstimate approximate drainage. Studies have shown complication rates as high as 44%. Worst case scenario, this means death. Best case scenario, excruciating headache. The existing devices have become a major patient safety issue. FlowSafe is automated, programmable, and dramatically reduces complications while saving the hospitals money. Invest in true innovation. Invest in patient safety.
So after having watched that, maybe John and Paul, you guys can speak to what you found to be effective and what kind of tips, I guess, people can take from seeing that video.
Let's see. I guess, John, you want to go first?
Sure. What is effective for me when I watch that video is I get to meet the person pitching his product, and the device, the production device of physically walking through the space. He's walking through the process of when it affects the patient, how it's used, what the product looks like. It's great to show your product. Don't ask someone to visualize it. You're going to get everyone visualizing it differently. And then that there are benefits to the hospital, both in patient care and in cost. They got a lot of messages across with very smooth storytelling.
Yeah, I agree completely, John. And it's funny because this is a guy who, is a neurosurgeon. So he actually, self-produced that video, directed the video himself, didn't hire a crew or do anything like that. So I got a real kick out of it. And it's great because not only does he communicate the story really well, but I think every time I watch it, I find myself kind of chuckling just because it's fun to watch, versus just, a talking head on the screen. So, in many ways, that video was one of the things that we used to actually choose the companies that year. We don't do that. We're not doing that this year. But that was something that I think was fun, that we actually, based on the strength of not only the company, their technology, but that video alone sold us on picking Becker Smith as one of our companies.
So I think, John, you brought up a good point. You said that you like seeing the product. One of the questions we get from our companies often is, they haven't really developed their full product yet. It might be a prototype, might not be the most beautiful thing to look at. Paul, do you think that they should include a video of what it actually looks like, or is a rendering more effective?
Yeah, I think having the actual product is very important in these videos. Oftentimes people say, oh, my product's kind of ugly, or it's still a benchtop prototype, and I don't want to show people that. But I can tell you there's something very visceral about seeing the real product that we're all fine with. We're all involved with innovation with early stage companies, and we know these aren't the final clinical products in most cases. So I'm perfectly happy to see something that looks like it's a Frankenstein thing that's been put together, as long as I know that there's a final product. One of our companies last year, Green Sun Medical, did a very effective job. They had a nice photo showing a side-by-side of their current product as it stood and a rendering of where it was going. And I think that was a really effective way of doing things. I think you can do that that was a photo. I think that can be done very well in video as well. So that's, I definitely would love to see the product. And I find that when someone doesn't include the product, it's sending a signal that you don't have a product. So I like to see the product.
So I think two of the things that we've all agreed on that would be great to include in your videos are the product and then the team members. What about the patient? Should that be included as well? I could direct that maybe to you, Paul, first.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely want to see the patient. I think that's incredibly important. And after I watch these videos, a lot of times I look back and when I think about what was missing, that's the thing that I think stands out the most to me, besides the team member, which we've already covered, is the patients that are being impacted. And I tell people this in there, any pitch they're giving, whether it's a PowerPoint presentation, a video, whatever you're doing, I want to see the patients who are being impacted by this technology. I want to see the faces of people that look like faces I know. And just, again, connecting with somebody on a personal level, it's very important. And when someone omits it, you get this you're left with that kind of business feel that, like, oh, this is it's all about money, or it's all about profit, and we always have to remember there's a patient, and by omitting the patient, I think it's a big mistake. I don't know, John, what do you think about that?
I agree with you. Another parallel avenue to that is when you're selling stuff, quite often that a saying that's used is sell the problem you solve, not the product. Meaning showing the benefits to the patient, that's personalizing it. That's touching home, because everybody has a medical issue in their family somewhere. And the more you can personalize it and draw on an investor's emotion, the closer you are to getting your investment.
Yeah, great point.
That's great. And so I guess before we move on to some of the more technical aspects of producing a video, John, speaking from your experience, is there anything else that has been very memorable for you that you've seen in other people's pitches that you can recommend that companies include or do for their videos?
Well, I would say that the things that happen most often are people have to make a connection to you. And the people that make connections to people and are positive and are smiling, and you'll know that when you tape yourself, to practice smiling. What feels exaggerated to you isn't exaggerated to someone you're talking to. But when someone's generally upbeat and confident about their product and about the benefits of the product, the more likely your audience will say, oh, this is something worth being passionate about and upbeat about. So think of a mirror. You're trying to emulate the response you want up front. And sometimes, and it happens on Shark Tank, is the person presenting can be their own worst enemy. They get in the way of the product because they don't look passionate. They don't look knowledgeable. They get uptight and nervous. And that goes away when people forget they're on camera. And the only way to do that is to practice on tape.
That's great advice. And so before we close up this section, Paul, this is another question for you. John had mentioned this earlier. We've all watched Shark Tank, and they all kind of have an ask. Should a company include their investment ask in their video?
Yeah, I think, you know, I mentioned before this idea of being timeless. I think in the video, you have to think for this particular use. So this is not the one that goes in your homepage, perhaps in the long run. But for this particular use, this is a video that the videos we're asking people to create in this program are going to live on the MedTech Innovator website. So when people go to their profile page, they're gonna see the video. They're going to be on the MedTech Conference's MedTech Connect system. If you upload your video there, there'll be a link where you can do that. So investors will see it. And also at the MedTech Conference, it's going to be shown right before the panel where you're speaking. So in that context, all of those places are places where you could include your ask somewhere else. So to keep the video a little more timeless. So you could have something to the right of the video on your website, or like we have on the MedTech Innovator site, that, or a paragraph of text talking about, you know, the funding you're raising. During the MedTech conference, you're going to be at a panel and you'll be answering questions that relate to your ask, so you don't have to do it in the video. I think it's better to keep the video pretty timeless and not include the specific round, because then you're just going to have to re-edit it. So I think it's better to not include the ask. You might say that, I do like asks though. So you might say things like I hope you'll join us in our, you know, our quest to help patients. Or you might say, you know, we're looking for partners and investors, and if you are interested, please contact us, you know, at the information on our website. Whatever you want to use, but I don't think you need to say we're raising a Series A for $3.5 million and it closes on August 15th. I don't think you need to include that.
That's great. Okay, so let's talk about production. So do the companies need to spend a lot of money to make these videos?
That is, that's a good question. So the video I showed you before from Becker Smith, I don't think they spend any money on that. Most of our companies, I would say the vast majority of our companies do not spend any money producing their video, other than things perhaps like stock footage, or maybe hiring a camera crew for the day, or having a friend shoot it on their iPhone sometimes. Most of them don't spend very much money, but some have. And we have some really good examples. I can show you a couple of companies that have hired crews, or who have friends who are professional in some way in the video field, or see themselves as professional, are amateurs, but are still pretty good. And they will draw upon those resources. And a lot of them use animation these days very effectively, and I think you can get animation for a pretty low cost. So I highly suggest that if needed to convey how your product works. So I'm in favor of that, but I'm not in favor of directing a lot of the money that you need as a precious resource to develop your product to produce a video. So I always say, you know, do everything you can to try and do it for free, or for very low cost. And if you have the budget, you want to go higher, then, you know, that's completely up to you. But it's not something that we don't encourage companies to spend a lot of money on their videos. And I'm happy to show you a video or two if you have if you have any more questions, and then we can talk about those.
Okay, perfect. So one other thing that we could, you know, kind of talk about as far as video production is last year, MedTech Innovator actually had to apply for the Growth Accelerator Fund competition, and one of the requirements was to create a video. And I think, you know, there was something very fun, and it was kind of a team building exercise for us in putting that video together. And I guess, Paul, maybe you could talk a little bit about, you know, having your team take part in this process. And I don't know, John, if you've also seen some of that as well.
Sure, yeah, I'll be happy to start. So you're right, Kathryn, that was a lot of fun. We won this grant from the SBA last year as one of the top accelerators in the country, which is a great honor. But we had to go through the same hoops that we ask other people to jump through. We had to create a video, and it was completely produced by us. The only outside resource we used is that we brought in a film student here in Los Angeles who I think we paid a couple $100 to for the day, and he professionally shot our interview so that we looked good. But the rest of it was all just stuff that we had already, and we edited, ourselves and self-assembled. So I was really happy to have that and have that experience, as you said. So I think it's a great team building exercise. I don't know, John, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree with what you said. And before, when you're talking about the economy, the costs associated with producing a video, remember, if this is the first time the investors are meeting you, then this is the first time that you can demonstrate that you will be responsible with money. So you don't overspend on production when you're trying to develop a product to help people. And it's a great time to be economical, but at the same time, show your creativity.
Great advice.
Great. And so I mean, that covers most of the questions we've had about video production. There was one thing that I wanted to go back to that we were kind of discussing a little bit earlier is, featuring the patient. But another thing that companies want to know is how do they establish credibility in their videos? So John, I'm going to turn to you first. What has appealed to you and what has demonstrated credibility in the companies that have pitched for you in the past?
To establish credibility equals expertise. So you want to talk about your either background, education, or the people that you've connected to that would supply the IQ power to make this idea an expert idea with expert execution. It's common sense.
And Paul, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think I always advise people to have someone who's not an employee of the company in your video in some way giving a testimonial. So that might be a surgeon if this is a surgical device, and they can say, I treat these patients, every day, and if I had this product, I would use it on all my patients. That's kind of an ideal thing to say. Or perhaps a hospital administrator, since value is now so important and the purchasing decisions are made by people in a value analysis committee in many cases. I'd love to see somebody who says, "Hi, I'm so and so. I'm the head of the value analysis committee here at UCLA, and one of the things that really excites me about this product is its ability to improve patient safety and to lower costs for our organization." Just something like that, I think, can really add a lot of credibility, especially if it's someone who, as I said, is not an employee, is clearly not an employee of the company.
Great advice.
Thank you.
So we've talked about, who and what should be on the videos, and then also producing the videos. One thing I also wanted to ask a little bit about is the structure of the video. So how do you recommend, putting the story together? Where do people start?
That's really interesting. So I've actually found that one of the mistakes people make is that they just start shooting. And I know, when I've done my own videos, we've even done that sometimes. So I advise people to write a script, to script it out. I've had a number of our companies send me a script, that's blocked out, and it'll say, for the first, because it's a minute, so it'll say like 5 seconds, and it has an intro and they kind of write out the script. And remember, it's only 1 minute, so you want to be as economical as you can with the time you have. So I think it's very effective to script it out, and then you can shoot what you've scripted once you really feel that you've come up with a good script. By the way, an added benefit is you can send that script to us, and you can send that script to other people that you know and let them read through it. And before you've wasted 1 second of shooting, get feedback from people on whether or not they think you're telling the story, or they say, oh, you're spending too much time on that, or you've left that important point out. So I highly recommend scripting. John kind of gave some basics earlier on about the story that you might be telling, some of the important points. I think structurally, we don't want all these videos to look exactly the same. So I don't want to see like 20 videos back to back or 50 videos that are all like, hi, I'm so-and-so. This is our problem. This is our solution. Here's an expert. Here's the patient. Hope you'll join us. I mean, it wouldn't be bad if that's your structure, but I think it's okay to mix it up a little bit. and to cut back and forth and, kind of visually be moving through a story, like, the Becker-Smith one I saw you before, or the one I showed you before. I could show you another video and we can maybe kind of analyze the structure they use in that. John really did a great job of summing that one up before. So if that's okay with you, I'll play another video and then we can kind of look at their structure. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, I'm going to screen share again. So this is going to be a video from a company that we had in the program called Core Medical. They, by the way, had done an Indiegogo campaign, I think it was. And so this video is an edited version of the video they'd already had created. So they didn't create this one from scratch just for MedTech Innovator. But let me play this.
The greatest barrier for people to live a healthy life is really information. The idea was, what if we could bring blood chemistry testing directly to the home so that people could use that as a tool to know whether the things that they're doing to maintain a state of health and wellness are really working properly. I envisioned the Core reader as part of your morning routine, touching the cartridge to your arm, putting it into the reader device, and walking away. Within 5 minutes, the Core data goes up to the cloud where it's acted on by our algorithms. Then that data gets returned to your smartphone. We need to get Core out there in the hands of people. And once we do, it's going to become very clear the benefits of this additional data that we're providing, basically as a way to give people access to the tools they need to take control and take charge of their own wellness.
So, by the way, that was, again, these are all 1 minute in length. And I don't know about you, but it feels longer than that to me. So I don't know, John, what are some of your thoughts on that, watching it? Because I don't know if you've ever actually seen that video before.
I have not seen that video, and clearly it's an example because it works. So as you said earlier, which should be doubled down on, the structure does not need to be, nor should it be, per se, a linear storytelling. What you should look for is, what's the aha moment? What's the moment in when you're thinking about your product and thinking about this 1 minute pitch? If you had to get one point across, go from an elevator pitch to tell me the one thing I need to know, and you can structure it off that. So if the one thing they need to know is that checking your blood in the morning through this special device is going to change your life, he came into that and out of that and left you with that bullseye. Without a ton of other information. I don't know what his background is. I don't know what the problem was he was addressing, but he was pitching a better quality of life. And a lot of times with presentations, no matter what the product or industry is, you talk about there's a problem in the market, we're solving for it, and here's the benefit, be it financial or emotional or health-wise. He didn't do any of that. He just said, you can have a better life if you use my completely cool and innovative product. And if I was an investor, I'd lean in and go, wow, that cat's got something I haven't seen before. I'm really interested. So it's very effective that way.
Yeah, and I agree completely. I saw Kathryn nodding there too for a second. Yeah, I mean, I think he did it in kind of a non-linear way. It wasn't a typical story structure, which is why I chose that one to play and highlight. And later on we got to see who he was. So in the beginning we heard him talking, and then it came up later and it gave his title and said he was the founder. So now, okay, now I know he's the founder. But in the beginning, it was just interesting to hear what he had to say, and then he's able to tell us who he is. It was a consumer product too, which is one of the reasons that I also chose that video, because this program is not just about medical devices that are regulated by the FDA. We have a number of companies in our program and globally now in our ecosystem that are pitching consumer products, and that's a challenge. And in this case, we're not showing a patient; we're showing someone who's healthy. Which is great, and that we're not just seeing somebody in a wheelchair or somebody laying in a hospital bed with lots of lines coming out of them. We're seeing someone whose life is being made better by this device, and I think that's kind of an exciting and fun thing that you have as an opportunity as a consumer company, and maybe even some of the other companies as well. It's like the TV commercials, right? When you see someone and they're talking about a particular drug. You don't always necessarily see the person when they're sickest. You're seeing them healthy and trying to emphasize that this product is equating with good health. So so I think that's important. And then if we're okay with me playing one more, I'll show a very different one. Hold on one second. I'll share my screen again. So this video is what I'm going to show from a company called Neurotronic, and it was professionally produced.
At Neurotronic, we're creating a new trajectory for people with heart failure. This therapy is a unique approach using neuromodulation to generate higher cardiac output. A temporarily placed neurocatheter in combination with a bedside neuromodulator delivers electrical stimulation to cardiac autonomic nerves. The approach is entirely novel. Patients should feel better. They should get out of the hospital sooner. And they should not come back to the hospital as frequently as short follow-up. At Neurotronic, our objectives are to improve clinical and economic outcomes for patients, physicians, hospitals, and payers. At Neurotronic, our development work has produced unique preclinical evidence of the ability to dramatically improve cardiac output in heart failure. We are Neurotronic, and we're creating a new trajectory for people with heart failure.
So that's a very different video, right, John?
Very different kind of video, yes.
And so what one of the things I like about that video obviously is the big ending with the team at the end, where they've got the "We are Neurotronic," and and again, it makes me smile when I watch the video, which I like, especially when you're watching a video about heart failure. So there's something about that. He didn't get into a lot of depth on the problem, which I think maybe he's making the assumption that we know what heart failure is. And so in some instances, that's a safe bet to make, that we don't need to spend a ton of time talking about heart failure. But if maybe it's a nuanced technology, you can talk about the specific needs of a heart failure patient that this particular product is going to address. In this particular case, they focus more on kind of like their team and what they're putting together, and showing visual images that make us feel like there's a real product here, and there's a team behind it. So I think in terms of whetting my appetite and wanting to know more about this company, that video did a really good job.
And I think that there were problems with the video. Having seen it for the first time, I found there to be a glaring juxtaposition between coming out and being hyper technical and then going into super simple talk. So they talked about the neurotransmitters and the stimulation and everything, and then they went, so you'll feel good, so the patient leaves early. And I think if they took part of the back half of the video where they talked about what their company did and then explained the technical stuff and then segued back out to this is what goes on, the message would have been better received, because they came in the pitch world, we would say, they came in hot. And it was so much info, so quick and so technical that if someone blinked, they got lost at the first turn. So although this video went, and it's a successful video, so you can't second guess success, I would say if that person was coming in to Shark Tank, for example, we never can make someone change their pitch. We can just suggest, based on experience of what gets digested by buyers and investors, they might have wanted to have a quick warm up before they got into all the technical stuff. But they landed all the points, and I agree with Paul. Best thing you can do is close strong, and by having the team there, it completely personalized it and put a smile on to end the video.
Yeah, no, I agree completely in that. It, as you said, came in hot. I agree with that completely. And like I said, it was a little bit. They definitely didn't get into the problem in the way that I think it would have been. They could have done a little more on. But let's watch one more and then see something very different again. All right.
Pulmonary embolism is the third leading cause of death in the U.S. Trauma patients are at high risk, but they can't be given blood thinners due to bleeding complications. Their only protection is a blood filter that prevents blood clots from reaching the lungs. Standard metal filters must be retrieved within weeks, yet few patients return to the hospital for retrieval surgery. These filters can break, leaving metal fragments in the heart or pierce the kidneys and aorta. My name is Mitch Eggers, founder and CEO of Adient Medical. We're developing the first fully absorbable IVC filter for the protection of pulmonary embolism. The filter serves to trap clots destined for the lungs. The clots resorb in the filter within weeks, and then the filter itself breaks down into carbon dioxide and water within months. Hence, the filter does its job and simply vanishes without a trace.
We have followed along the development of his company and his device, which we think will really improve patients' outcome, and are looking forward to participating in a clinical trial.
I believe we have both the opportunity and responsibility to change the statistics of pulmonary embolism.
Okay, so as I said, very different video, right, John? So,
Yes.
So what did you see differently in that story?
Well, some really good things in terms of describing the problem, not just what it is, but how it can negatively affect the patient and cause a reoccurrence of the patient having to come back in, that they have a very forward-thinking, call it self-disposing type of filter that solves the problem. He talked about who he was and everything. A production note for all of you wondering, I think they just said to try to do it for very little money, and they've got helicopters in the opening shot. I would say it's actually distracting to me, because most trauma interventions, a fraction, less than 1%, are helicopter based. So I was actually a little distracted going, is this for helicopter use? Like, what's going on here? They could have been equally effective and massively more economical by just showing a trauma intervention on the ground at a playground, in an office, on the way to a hospital, whatever it is. But overall, I think they had great ingredients and probably could have improved their recipe a little.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're completely right about that. In many ways, in that I think they're using the trauma thing for effect, right? I mean, the big helicopter stuff, it looks dramatic, and certainly it's communicating. Visually, we're saying, oh, this is a huge problem. We can pay attention. It's got that kind of a vibe to it. One of the things that I really liked about the video towards the end was that it had a testimonial, which
Love that.
Kathryn, right? Yeah, and Kathryn had mentioned before and asked about, and I agree, right? So I really love that too. I really like the idea that we had someone in that video who was not an employee of the company, who was talking about the need for it, how it's going to impact patients, and I think that's incredibly effective and got my attention. I remember when I watched the video for the first time, the helicopter and stuff that whatever, that it kind of you get past it pretty quickly, but I like how he showed. I really like, the other thing I really love too, and I always think about this with Mitch. That was Mitch Eggers from Adient Medical, who was actually our second place winner last year out of 500 companies. And one of the things that I love about that video is that when you do see Mitch and he's talking, he's not just sitting at a desk, with a sign behind him like I am right now. He was sitting in his home workshop. That was his garage, where he built a system that I think he named Igor or something, that is literally like a Frankenstein system of the model that he built himself of the human vasculature. And you saw in the video, you saw kind of a clot like running through like a tube, and that's literally in his garage. Like, his wife let him do that, and he built this huge thing. And so we kind of had a little bit of a glimpse, even though it didn't say in his garage. I think some of us, get the feel that like, oh, this is a workshop, this is active. I like seeing that. I like seeing the bench. I like seeing people working. And so I thought that was a nice way of showing him. In the same way in that first video, when Jan from Becker Smith was walking through the hospital and then driving in his car and then in surgery or in an OR, and you kind of had a feel for all the places that a surgeon is spending their day in. I like to see the inventor kind of in the place of business if we can, and not just an artificial thing. in front of a white, screen or something in the background, as visual and pretty as those look, I like to see the person, in their place of work. Back to you.
So I think we're gonna try and invite some people to join the Hangout and ask some questions live. I've sent out an invite, but let's see if they can join. While we're waiting for people to join, I thought that we could revisit something that John had brought up about the second video, and also a little bit about the third video. Is some of the pitfalls to avoid when creating these pitch videos. I know that you've had a lot of experience in the pitch world, so what are some things that you don't want to see in these videos, John?
What I don't want to see, I don't want to be confused. I don't want to hear about overly the specifics of a product. I want to hear about the problem it solves and the benefits to the people, call it the patients, that are receiving it. When you think about how McDonald's, who spends hundreds of millions of dollars on psychological research about what's going to make their product sell to consumers, when you watch a commercial for McDonald's, say for a Happy Meal, what you see is a happy family together and smiling and seemingly healthy. But they don't talk about the fact they're selling you a meat patty and French fries and a toy and a soda. That's what the product is. They sell you on the benefits of what it does. So one of the most powerful advertising companies in the world has determined the product itself, although it needs to be explained so people know what they're getting into, isn't as important as making an emotional connection and showing the benefits of who's receiving that product. That's what motivates people. So I would think that's one of the biggest things that can be looked at during your 1-minute video is where's the balance of your focus, especially the way Paul described it, which is a great idea. Write an outline for your pitch so you have a script to go from. Well, how much of it is weighted toward the product itself versus the benefit or the solution you're solving? And that way you can determine your own balance. But the more it's about solution and benefit, the better off it is.
Right, and I think you make a good connection there that, these videos are kind of a sales and marketing tool, and that kind of brought to mind what we see a lot is comedy when people are trying to sell products. Do you have any advice about tackling comedy in these videos? Is that something they should try to do, or, leave it up to somebody who does that professionally?
I wouldn't try to be funny, but it's okay to have a smile and a sense of humor about what you do, but I wouldn't look to write a joke. This is a very serious field we're in, and people want to know you're taking it seriously. It's not a stand-up routine. You have 1 minute to talk about a product that you've probably invested every hour of every day in, as has everyone on your team. So, on Shark Tank, we do a lot of make sure you have a nice tagline at the end. If somebody is dealing with a product about shark repellents, come on, who wants to take a bite out of this investment? I don't know if you need to be cute like that. I would just really let your passion and your smile and enthusiasm about what you're working on come through. And if that doesn't give someone a smile, a joke's not going to do the trick.
Got it. So we had actually one question that came in through our chat over here. So in the last video, the Adient video, it seemed like a lot of info that was shown in that video. Did you think that it was too much, or was that a good amount?
For me, it was a little too much. I really think that you want to be very cognizant of not what you say, but remember, what information do you want the person watching your video leaving with? They're going to remember 1, 2, or 3 things. What's it going to be? It's certainly not going to be a lot of technical detail. Unless they're wired into your very specific space, they're not going to be able to capture, retain, and remember that stuff. So what is it you really want them to remember? That you've solved a problem that affects a giant community and you have a unique product. If they walk away with some type of takeaway like that, you're going to be on their radar.
Great. So I think we're having a little trouble getting in the live questions. Paul, were you able to send out the invite?
Yeah, I sent out the invite, but that's okay. I think there was something else I wanted to share too, real quick. I'm going to go back to my screen share, and this is a website that AdvaMed has produced. I don't know if you can see the URL at the top, but it's www.lifechanginginnovation.org, and it's a open website that tells stories about the impact that medical innovation has on lives. So again, life-changing innovation. And the reason I mentioned the website is that they have videos on that site that you can watch. I'm not going to play them now, but you can go through yourself later, lifechanginginnovation.org, and you can watch some of the videos. And these are videos that were professionally produced to help communicate the message that the medtech industry is trying to communicate to the world about the impact that its innovation has on patients. So I think you can learn some good lessons about structure. There's even some good resources and some toolkits on the website that you can use when you're thinking about producing your video. And something else I wanted to mention as well is that this is the first year that we did not have all of our companies produce videos before we accepted them into our program. So in the past, one of the things we did was we had companies right at the very end of the selection process, we had them make videos. And as I mentioned earlier, we use it as a tool to help select companies in some cases. And we decided this year, because we found that many of the companies, as they progress through the program, heading towards the showcase at the MedTech conference in the fall, said, hey, I really want to update my video. We realized that it was kind of a waste of resources to have them do that. And so what I wanted to make sure that I'm emphasizing here is that we don't want people to rush doing these videos. That's why I mentioned the Life Changing Innovation website. There are all sorts of great resources out there in general that you can use to think about and to plan your video before you go through the exercise of creating it. They're due at the end of July, I believe, and there's probably a little bit of buffer room if people had to, go into early August. But the point is, you have time to work on these, and I think that it's really important to look at structure that other people have used. So look at our website. You can go to MedTech Innovator's website. On our website, I can share that as well for people so people know where to look. On our website, we have a section on all of our companies. So if you're on the MedTech Innovator website and you go to the menu that says Accelerator up here at the top, and then you go to all companies, when that page loads, you'll see logos for all the different companies in the program. And each of those are linked to a page about the companies, although this year's companies aren't linked yet to their profile pages as they're coming. But the point is, if you were to go to a past year, so if you were to say, let me go look at MedTech Innovator 2016, for example, it'll reload and show you all the companies. You could then go through and say, well, who won? Oh, Green Sun Medical won. Let's take a look at their video, pull it up, and watch their video. Which by the way, I will play. I'm going to play 1 second of their video just because it occurs to me right now too that they did something. I believe they showed the patient here. Let me see. It's only 1 minute, so we'll go quickly on it. Although it's not loading. All right. Well, the point is, it's a great resource, and if you have the opportunity to spin through the videos on the website, you can look and see, see what some other people did. So again, look at those videos for structure. Look to see what you like and what you don't like. And that's, to John's point earlier about, maybe it's too much information in the video and then, we're coming in too hot. Whatever it is that, that you take away from some of these videos, learn from them and say, boy, I don't want to do that. There's some videos, I'm not going to name any names, from our earliest competitions where it was literally like a talking head on a screen, going, hi, I'm so-and-so, and this is what we do, and blah, 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 blah. And although we chose those companies, so it's not that they're a bad company, I just think they could have had a more effective video. So I really recommend watching other people's videos to give you a sense for not only just the structure and the overall feel, but things that you you don't want to do. I can also give some other quick tips on things that we shouldn't do, if that's okay. And the same thing goes with John. You can maybe give some other pointers about things to avoid. Specifically, some of the things I already mentioned right now. Don't just be a talking head on the screen. Some of the other things that I feel very strongly about, as I mentioned before, is not only using professional voiceover. I want to reiterate that. Although I will say it's fine to have professional voiceover later in the video. So again, I'd love to see you or a co-founder or somebody on the screen for just a brief moment. And then if you want to cut to professional voiceover for most of it, I'm okay with that. There's actually a website called Voice Bunny. I don't have to share the screen, but it's voicebunny.com. That is it's basically a gigantic directory of voiceover talent that is available to work at very competitive rates. And it lists, and so it has sampled, you can search for people, for types of voices that you're looking for. So if you want a British female voice, you could do that. Or if you want someone who is a Spanish accent, whatever you're looking for, you can do that. Or you can want someone who's authoritative, or or someone who has a deep voice, or whatever you're looking for. You can find those, and it'll tell you, it'll have samples, and it has, so you can listen to the audio samples, and then it has you can do an instant quote. So if you say, I'm doing a 1-minute video, it'll come back and it'll say, John Weiser is available to do this video for $157. Although I don't know if John Weiser is available for that. Are you available? You have that wonderful broadcast voice.
If it's for $157 cash, I'm available.
So that is, so I would, number one, as I always say, start with yourself. John said it before, rehearse this thing many, many times, practice it. I remember Jamie Haggard from Green Sun Medical always talks about his actual pitch, not just his video pitch, but his pitch that he did for MedTech Innovator that he used in the finals. I think he rehearsed like 500 times in a real auditorium on a stage, right? I mean, he did not want to leave anything to chance, and he won. And he's an amazing product and all those things going for him, but I don't think it hurt that he rehearsed it so many times. And I think the same thing goes for this, that if you practice this enough times and you're comfortable with what you're saying, I think anyone can tell their own story. And again, if you want to use Voice Bunny or use something else, that's fine. If you want to use a rendering, that's fine. As you saw in some of these videos, there's great animation and those resources available incredibly for very low money. I mean, I've seen people get, animations, beautiful animations done for $1,000 that look like they spent $50,000. John, any tips or things that you tell people not to do?
Well, don't rush. I know a minute is like, I've got to get everything in, which could change the rhythm of your voice. But this has to feel natural. Like when you're dealing with your voice, when we coach people, there's a tone, there's a different cadence you speak at, a rhythm, a pitch. Several things go into your actual voice. But in the worlds of don't just speed through it thinking the more you say, the better your pitch is.
That's great. So we're pushing up on the hour here. So I wanted to just, thank everyone for joining us for our first webinar in this year's series. Wanted to thank our panelists, John and Paul. We're very glad to have you, and I think we're all hoping to see some of these companies on Shark Tank one of these days. And then I'd also like to plug some other upcoming events we have. So we have our Twitter chat on Tuesday. So the topic will be delivering value in the new healthcare economy. So that's at 11 a.m. PST Pacific time. And then our next installment in the MedTech Innovator Live series will be on IP for MedTech startups with a focus on devices and digital health strategy. And we'll be joined for that webinar with 2 attorneys from Wilson Sonsini and a partner at Shea Glenn, Ben Glenn. So thank you all again for tuning in, and we'll be happy to take some follow-up questions through email and help provide feedback on your videos. Good luck, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, John, for participating and giving us your time. I know it's a valuable resource, so we really appreciate it. And John, I think there might potentially be an opportunity at some point, maybe later in the program, for people to get to meet you if we can get you to come up to our event in San Jose. So hopefully we'll get a chance to give some pitches to you live and in person.
Would love that. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Kathryn. And we will see everybody on the next webinar.